Okay, you're all set. Huh?
What a pretty picture.
That's our backyard.
That's awesome.
What?
Another picture. The
Picture's
Oh.
beautiful.
bandstand. We'll be up where the lighthouse is tomorrow.
Very cool.
Yeah, you know.
Good evening.
Hello, how are you all?
Okay,
Good, how are you?
Good. Just going to give it a minute to see if Paula joins. I don't see her on. And Levon has indicated that she has a conflict tonight, so she won't make it.
Why don't you tell them that you gotta leave us out there?
Marie,
Yes,
I have a family meeting at 7:30. I couldn't get out of, so I'm gonna have to.
okay.
leave.
Okay, let me just,
I apologize.
nope, no problem. Just looking at the agenda to see if we needed to move anything up, but I don't think there's anything in particular. Okay. All right, well, we have a quorum, so let's get started. So today is Monday, June 6th, 7:03. We'll call the meeting of the Wakefield Commission on Disabilities to order. Lois, do you have your flag? There you go. And we can go ahead with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I do not see anyone from the public online. Our mission is to address the needs and concerns of our disabled residents and provide their full participation in the activities and services of Wakefield. First, Levon is not on, so would somebody mind doing the minutes for tonight in her absence? Thanks, Janice, I appreciate it. So we'll first approve the meeting minutes from our May 2nd meeting. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve those May 2nd, 2022 meetings? Thank you, Judy.
I make a motion.
Thank you. Will somebody second that, please?
I will.
Thanks, Kristen. Okay. And in regard to the financial report, I sent you all an email. So we'll check that off. So we'll get right to the kind of the meat of the discussions tonight. The first item on the agenda is entitled a 3 handicap parking situation. So we'll discuss the first one that I sent you on Chestnut Street. So it was 26 Chestnut Street. So I sent a detailed email to all of you with the specifics of each of these issues. So what's before us on Chestnut Street is that we have a condominium association that has private parking in the back. Every resident has a dedicated spot, so there's no handicap parking required on the property itself. This resident in particular is an elderly couple asking for a handicap parking spot on the street in front of the unit because they have mobility issues. The back of the building, if they were to park in their parking space in the back, to get to their door, they need to go over a curb and up 5 steps. In the front, there's just 1 step to get into the building. As I explained, right in front of that building, there is there's a sign that says no parking. From here to no parking. And my suspicion is to the right of that sign is the driveway that goes into this, this building. And so I'm thinking that when you come out of their parking lot, it may be difficult to see to pull out onto Chestnut Street if there were a car there. That's my assumption. I don't know that for certain. Also, Chestnut Street, at least in that area, is resident parking only. So the question to the commission is, we can't make the decision about the handicap parking space. All we can do is say yay or nay to move this request forward to the traffic advisory board. So basically make our recommendation to move this forward to the traffic advisory board. Then they'll do their review and discussion, and based on whatever criteria they have, will determine whether they want to then move that forward to town council, who I believe is the one that makes the ultimate decision. So I think what we need, so we need to vote on this. Janice, I think we're going to do this very formally, and we are going to, and I don't know that I can do this as the chair, so I'm going to ask somebody to basically make a motion to recommend handicap parking space to the traffic advisory board in front of 26 Chestnut Street.
Before that's done, I just want to ask a question. What is the landlord's responsibility to provide accommodations for somebody with disabilities on the property?
I think the way that I read the law is they are required to provide reasonable accommodations. So if this is my thought, if the only hurdle was the curb from the parking lot onto the walkway to the back door, I would say, let the landlord cut out the curbing there and lay some asphalt so that they wouldn't have to step with their walker or cane. But in this instance, there are 5 very nice granite steps that go up to their back door. And when I drove there, it wasn't like they were really wide. So, if they were to put out a ramp on those back steps, I don't know, that could almost be more dangerous than the steps themselves. But yeah, I think there is, they have to provide reasonable accommodation, but I don't know, looking at it, I don't know, do you have any suggestions of what else they could do? Like, what are some of the other options?
I don't think there's other options, but I'm not sure.
And I also don't think this is a landlord situation, correct? Because these are condos.
It's a home
so
association.
Would be the
homeowners
association, right? I mean, some of the things I've read that, people, condo owners could be asked to do is they could be asked to absorb some of the cost for accommodations, but the association has the right to insist that they hire the personnel to actually do the work. Those are just some of the things that I've read. I'm surely not well versed on this at all. I just, started doing some reading. So.
And the people are aware of the fact that if there really was a handicap spot put out in front, that it is open to the public to park there and not just them. They're aware of that, right?
I have in my email this is the Sun. Before we continue, I just want to acknowledge that Bill Renault has just joined the meeting. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how we doing?
Good. How are you? You may have some thoughts on this. We're talking about the request up, and Paula Thompson is joining as well.
So which is this for, one of the condos that we were talking about before?
This is for the condo on Chestnut Street.
Okay.
where an elderly couple resides and they're asking for a handicap parking spot
Mhm.
in the front of the building. So I'll repeat just for Paula and Bill. Bill, I think I copied you on the email, did I? I had sent out kind of a lengthy email. Okay, so there's dedicated parking in the back in a parking lot. And then there's a curb and 5 steps to get to the back door.
Mhm.
And then in the front of the building, there's 1 step to get to the front door. And so these folks, are asking for a handicap parking spot in the front of the building. There's also a no parking spot in the front of the building as well, a sign that says no parking, which I'm guessing might be because if somebody were parked there, they couldn't, the residents couldn't see pulling in and out of the driveway that's right there, but I'm not for certain. So the motion before us as to whether the commission wants to make a recommendation to the traffic advisory board to, add a handicap parking spot there in the front of the building. Now, Lorna just asked, these residents aware that that spot's not dedicated to them, that anybody with a handicap parking plate can park there, and I have communicated that.
Yep, that's accurate.
Because
Maria, I just wanted to also mention, because we're in New England, sometimes there's no on-street parking for snow emergencies and
Correct.
that type of thing. And then the other thing, like you were mentioning, it really would be available to anyone who had a handicap placard.
Yep.
And some of those people have accessible vans that could make it extremely difficult to get in and out of a driveway. It's what, I haven't seen the location, but just from how you describe it.
If it makes sense to the commission, I can take a look to see why there's no parking there. If it's a dimensional thing, or if it's because we have history on the no parking, so there would be at least something in the file as to when that was approved and why, in theory. The notes are better now than they were, but
would it make any sense to if there could be some sort of a nice walkway that got around? I don't know how huge this condo is, but because especially during the winter, it could be another challenge for them if they can't park on the street, because even if it's handicap parking, I would imagine the streets need to be cleared during certain times of the year.
Yep.
So is there a way that there could be a nice walkway for them so they could get wherever they needed to be and be safely parked in the back? I don't know.
I guess I'm not following what you mean by walkway.
Well, so they want to be able to go into the front of the building instead of the back of the building. But if they parked where they would usually park, is there some way for them to have a nice stable walkway to get to the front of the building? And then they wouldn't have to worry about snow emergencies or somebody else parking there or anything else.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're
So
saying. You're saying that would be the reasonable accommodation.
they would, it would. I don't know the answer to that question, because the driveway would be the only way that they could, they would leave their parking spot and walk up the driveway to the front of the building. Walking up the driveway is going to be an incline, because when you go down the driveway, it kind of slopes down. So it would be an incline. And I don't know if adding a walkway would, I don't know if, I'm guessing there's some requirement for the width of that driveway, and obviously adding a walkway would take away from that, and whether there's enough room to do that or not, I don't know.
Right. Typically, so when it is property that's private, it's a little difficult for us to really impose anything, because the public doesn't go there. So there is a line that's drawn. So really, it's on the folks that are that are part of the condo association. And if there's a complaint, this person can go and complain to the to the state about it, and then they would go through their process. But from the town standpoint, we don't really have anything that we can really do.
So what you're saying is if there were a complaint, if the condo association weren't willing to work with this couple and they filed a complaint with the state, then the state would go to the condo association.
In theory, that's the, yeah.
Okay,
And
alright.
for the most part, they're going to be responsive. So I would imagine that would happen.
Right.
If that's what they're at. I mean, it sounds to me, all they're really asking for is a parking spot towards the front, right? And they just want to have a,
Well,
easier
there is street park, there is on-street parking. It's all resident parking only. And
Okay.
obviously these folks have a resident parking sticker, but the problem is there's not always a space right in front of their building. Maybe
Yeah.
there's a space down the street, which requires them to then walk some distance. And that's the issue, right? They
But
can
didn't
park
you-
down the street and walk if there's a spot, but I think that's the issue. They want something right in the front.
Sure. But I thought that you said there was no parking in front of the building.
There's one spot that says no parking.
Okay.
There's the driveway, there's some frontage there with a spot that says no parking. And again, I'm gathering that might be because you can't see getting in and out of the driveway if somebody were parked there.
Okay.
And then the resident parking only starts.
So how about this? If I take a look at that area and see if it makes sense to put a handicap space somewhere there, and we
Okay.
can use that as an action item, I'm happy to go take a peek. And
That
see
would be
what-
great, Bill, because there is no handicap parking anywhere in the area that I saw. And I don't know, should there be, should every street have one? I don't know.
So if it's a spot that is, if it's a striped space, typically there's a requirement for one spot per block. So that's the standard for on-street parking.
One spot per block
Per block. Yeah, and the block definition is very vague, but
for
that's
what?
for handicap spaces, on-street handicap spaces.
Okay,
Yeah, so if there's nothing on the street, that would definitely make sense.
okay, that would be great.
Yeah, typically we like to put them next to, a handicap ramp. That would make more sense, but in this case, if there's a request, it doesn't sound like it wouldn't make sense to put it there, but let me take a look and I can report back next month, or I can go through Marie and just let her know what you think.
Okay.
If I'm just to keep
So-
moving, because
Do we want to make a motion to move the request to Bill's attention so that the family knows that it's been discussed?
yeah,
Yes, let's,
can I just one chime in, just so you know the status on traffic advisory. We have a meeting in June, and we're not going to have any other meetings until September.
Right.
So I just want to let everyone know that. So whatever we're moving, just make sure you're moving it so that I can start moving on it, what I have to do, and make a recommendation maybe to Marie on whether we should move forward with one of these locations. And then she can write a letter that comes to us before the meeting.
all right, well, we're in the same boat. This is gonna be our last meeting. So I don't know, I suppose here's where I don't know the rules, right? If we make we're gonna, now allow Bill to handle, to come back and report to us, but even if he when is the meeting in June with the traffic advisory?
I think the 24th, but I have to confirm that.
Okay. All right, so, are we gonna be able to do this via email, take a vote via email?
Yeah, that's tough. That's
Yeah,
difficult.
What if the motion is that the commission would like to move this to the traffic board with input from Bill?
okay. Yeah,
That
I
works.
think,
That works. Yep.
All right, so I'll make that motion. Because it
I'll
sounds
second
like.
And you say it
expedient-
exactly again,
to
because we need to write
expedient.
it, we need to write it exactly in the minutes. The motion is,
In order to expedite the request, the commission recommends the issue be moved to the traffic board with input from Bill.
Hold on, hold on.
Okay.
The issue be moved,
To the traffic board.
traffic advisory
Advisory,
board,
Based
for
on,
their June meeting
based
with
on,
input from
with the
Bill
input.
Renault. That way they can get their spot this summer
Right,
and not wait until September or maybe even later.
right. And so Janice, this is 26 Chestnut Street.
26, not 27. I had written 27.
Yeah, I think it's 26.
Got it.
I don't have the email in front of me. We'll confirm that. But
All right, so the motion is in order to expedite the request for an accessible parking spot on Chestnut Street, the commission recommends the issue be moved to the Traffic Advisory Board based on input from Bill Renault. Is that correct?
And can we add for their June meeting? And then hopefully they'll be able to get their spot for the summer.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And then Bill, just for my own information, because I don't know, during the snow emergencies, does that also include the handicapped parking spots need to be?
that's a great
vacated?
question. It's a great question. I'm almost positive it does, because they don't really have the ability to wing around cars.
That's
Typically,
what I would imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's at least something the residents need to be made aware of, I would think.
Yeah, we talk about that at the meeting typically. So we'll talk about that and that it isn't dedicated to them. All those conversations happen as part of the traffic advisory meetings.
all right, and then the Traffic Advisory Board would send written notice back to us on a decision.
Or you could have Dan's the rep, I believe. Dan and Lois are typically there. So Dan, I'd assume would provide the input back to the board. He's a sitting member on it. So that you have a commission member that sits on the traffic advisory for these issues.
I am too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you are too, right? Yeah.
We're sorry, but we're leaving right now. We got a meeting.
Yep,
Hello?
very good. Thank you.
Bye, folks.
I don't usually do this, but
Okay. All right, would somebody second that motion, please?
I second it.
All right, and then we need to vote, take a vote. All in favor? Okay, so let's just note that Lois has left, so and Levon is not present. Otherwise, everybody is a yes. Okay. All right, are we all set? Well, we will move on to the next one. So the next one is the Vista Apartments. Lorna, please remind me what street that is. Hopkins Street. I'm
Hopkins
sorry,
Street.
Hopkins Street. I think it's 105 and 109 Hopkins Street. So as I indicated in my email, we've received a complaint from a Reading resident who is in a abutter to those apartments because obviously they're on the Wakefield Reading line. And I forwarded to you pictures, a second email and pictures that this gentleman had sent me. So there are four handicap parking spaces in that apartment complex. And Bill had sent us the parking plan that the developer had submitted to the town, and it indicates 4 parking spaces, and I've been there and confirming that that is what I saw. Again, private property. This is not a condo complex, but a rental lease situation, and there is a lease office on the property. Again, from my reading, what it says is that lease property is considered public, and therefore they must have handicap parking, which they do. There are 2 spaces right in front of that door into the leasing office. What this gentleman is conveying is that in these handicap parking spaces, he often sees vehicles that do not have a handicap parking placard. They are moving vehicles. They're people that park there for days or weeks. And his first question to us is, are there the required number of handicap parking spaces in that development? And based on what Bill has sent us, I would say yes. That, you know, they submitted this plan to the town. What they've submitted, the plan they've submitted is what they've done. Now, Bill, you're also saying that they're going to be updating their parking plan. Do we know what those updates are going to be?
No idea. So just to give the commission a little background, so the Traffic Advisory Committee recently had a no parking section on Hopkins Street, which is probably starting most of these issues. As soon as that went in, now there weren't enough folks to park where they needed to park. So they're looking to adjust that on the site to accommodate the need. I understand that the attorney will be filing in the near future an updated parking submittal to us. So my thought was basically just to reinforce within the decision that the handicap spaces must remain usable for handicapped folks, and you know, that's not to be used as a loading area. If there's a need for a loading area, we can look into having them modify it so that there is, and then there's a separate space made accordingly. But yeah, that's kind of how I thought we would handle it. But if there's a difference or another opinion here, I'm happy to chat it out.
Okay, so I think for this one, the motion is to, for the commission to forward a letter to the management company of the Vista Apartments on, you know, on the use of those spots, that the fact that those spots are there and they need to remain available for use for individuals who have handicap placard. I guess my question is part of the discussion, does the commission have jurisdiction, because this is private property, to even send this letter?
Again, it is gray. The fact that I look at it that the commission has it's the public parking component for the lease office, not necessarily the leased buildings, because you know they assign those spaces to folks within the complex. So it's similar to a condo association.
Okay. So public parking component for the leasing office spaces, because that is considered public. Okay, so that's fine.
That's how I've always looked at it, or at least that's been my take on it. If you've read
Okay.
something different, I'm happy to discuss it, but that's been my understanding.
Okay, so then the motion before us is to forward a letter to the leasing company, you know, advising them on, you know, the use of those handicapped parking spots and the fact that they need to remain vacant for that purpose. So is there any discussion? We fine with me just writing something and sending it off? Okay. Okay, so all in favor?
I'd also include include it to the ZBA and to me.
Okay.
We need a second on the motion.
Yes, please. Well, yes, could someone second it? Okay. And did we get,
Who seconded?
that was Kristen?
Kristen,
And,
Thank you,
you know,
Kristen.
with somebody, I don't think I should be making the motion, so somebody may actually make the motion.
I make the motion that the letter be sent to the leasing office stating that the 2 parking slots for handicap individuals remain open and available to individuals that have the handicap placard.
Okay, thank you, Lorna. Okay. And if we are set with Janice, are you good? I don't want to be going too fast.
Thank you.
Okay. And so the third one was just really for our information. This was.
Sorry, Marie, I missed it. I was looking, did you take a vote?
Yes,
Yeah, we actually took a vote before we did the motions.
yeah.
All right, thank you. Was
Yes,
everybody in favor?
everybody.
Sorry, I'm looking
is-
at a different screen.
That's right. Yes, everybody was yes. And then obviously note that Levon and Lois are not present.
Yeah, I don't do this as well as Levon.
You're doing just fine.
Mhm.
We'll try to talk slower.
Thank you.
So the third item was really just for your information only. Bill received an inquiry from a resident in one of the condos on Foundry Street. These are condos. It sounds like that all the units have been sold. They are now establishing a homeowners association. And one of the homeowners who was a board member contacted Bill to inquire about the parking plan that was submitted to the town. So for me, that was news. I guess I didn't even realize that those developments had to submit a parking plan to the town. He wanted to know what spaces had been designated as parking, handicap parking, because people were parking all over the place. And it sounds like, you know, they want to get a notice out to their residents, reminding them that those spaces are for handicap use only. So
I
thought
think
good-
also, I
Yep.
think also it was that he wanted to know what the process was of adding another handicap slot to their outside parking lot. And they didn't know if we actually had anything to do with that, which I didn't think we did. And I think Bill took it from there.
Yeah, so they were looking at that. They were wondering if there was a requirement to have a space outside, and then they were wondering what the requirements were for the overall parking plan, because they were deeding them out to certain folks, is what they were doing. So that is allowed to be done, provided that they don't have a request from anyone. So what they've done is the way that the condo was drafted for that development is they were creating a parking and traffic committee that's a member of the board. So it's like a separate board that is part of the condo association. And what they're going to do in all likelihood is require a person that has one of those handicap spots to give that up if there's a need for a handicap resident. So that's typically how these are supposed to work. So
they're deeding the handicap parking spots to residents that are not handicapped.
yep, because they have these spots that are vacant and they have no one that's asking to use it, and it is private property, so they have the ability to do that. So trying to figure out, how to figure out this loophole. My thought would be going forward that we just make sure that we get to see a copy of it, or have some type of some type of condition rolled into the decisions that talk about viewing that, to make sure that it happens, so that someone doesn't just take up the handicap spaces, and then if someone comes in that needs it, they don't get it. So I think that would solve that problem.
So this committee that they're going to create, that's going to be specific to parking.
Yep.
What is it that they're preparing?
So they prepare a document that outlines who gets what spots and how that all works. And, who gets assigned what, how many, because there'll be a few that will have 2, some will have 1, all that type of thing.
All right, and so do you want to be the point of contact with them that reviews that? So you've had that conversation with them?
I already have. Yep. I've already sent him an email that lays that out and said, typically this is how it's handled. And he said, okay, that's what we'll do. He just wanted to make sure that they weren't walking into something. So I just explained what the requirements are.
Well, I applaud him for being proactive, and let's hope that the other condo associations in town will we'll hear our meeting and do the same.
Well, I think we have an opportunity to be able to write a kind of a condition that's standard, and that might be something that, you know, this commission could, you know, write to the ZBA to recommend it, that at least happens. So if there is a future resident that needs that handicap spot, that they're gonna be, that it has to be written into their condo documents accordingly, and that there's a catch-all. That's typically how I do it with the stormwater stuff. So we could come up with a condition that would make sense. And if this commission sends it to the ZBA as a recommendation to include this on all condo projects, that would make a lot of sense.
Okay, that sounds great.
Cool. So I can help you, Marie, with that language if you'd like. And, you know, that letter.
Is that something that we can wait to do in September when we
Your
convene again?
call. Yeah, your call. I think it's all your call, to be honest with you. I mean, the big one that's going on right now is the 200 Quinnipiac, obviously, but that has assigned public parking and whatnot. So that obviously has to meet the handicap spots for the public parking components of it.
All right, and that, I mean, that's gonna take a while to get to.
This is in the home stretch right now. So there's conditions flying around in drafts of it. So it's going to be, that'll be done probably before you folks meet again. So it's up
Okay,
to
so
you. If
what
you
do
want
you
to take
recommend?
you could take a vote to, you know, to draft a letter recommending, you know, handicap parking be provided to handicap residents when applied for or requested. And I can help you with that letter to draft it. So we have a specific condition that we recommend they include on all of their condo, or even, you know, any development project, really.
Okay. Okay, Janice, you ready? So I guess we
Right,
want
yeah.
to then,
So there was a motion to draft a letter that accessible parking be made available to any resident with disabilities who makes a request to use that parking spot. Upon request of.
specific to condo associations, Bill?
I think you could go for both. I just do general development if you want.
Okay.
Yep.
So multifamily development, do we need to specify, how do they refer to those?
Why don't we just leave it general for just general residential development?
Okay,
Got it.
okay, so Janice, why don't you go ahead and read it and make the motion, and then someone can second and we'll vote.
Am I on mute? Motion is to draft a letter making accessible parking available to a resident with disabilities who makes the request. This applies to general residential development.
Okay, thank you. Will someone second that, please? Thank you, Judy. And then can we vote? Aye. Okay, make sure I'm seeing everybody. Yes.
Just
okay.
one thought, do we want, and I know we've already voted, so we can't necessarily go back, but do we want it to say general residential development or just general development? Or just development overall, if it's commercial or residential?
Well, commercial, they're required to, so they have to have.
Okay, all right.
They're not dedicating and assigning spaces. That's the difference. So,
Gotcha.
again, anything
Thank
that
you.
includes a residential development, that'd be the distinguished difference.
Okay, great. Okay, everybody set with that? Okay, so the next item is, Judy, you had attended at least a portion of the ride listening session. Do you want to just give us an update on what you gleaned from that?
Sure. So anybody who takes the ride has an opportunity to attend what's called the listening session. And you can talk about whatever you'd like. You can talk about this wonderful experience you had, or you can talk about some improvements that you'd like to see. And so once again, the ridership, they love the addition of the ability to utilize Uber and Lyft as part of the ride. And most of the people seem to really want that expanded if possible. And there's also a website that people can go to if they have anything that they would like to report on. And the website is mbta.com/customer support. And then you can go to that and mention anything that you need to mention. And then it's just the basic phone number also, which we have now on the website for people, but I'll just mention it since I mentioned that again, but that's already on our website. So it was a nice meeting, and they're very open to anything that anybody wants to bring to their attention. And it sounds like they'll be having more of those.
That's great. Any comments? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the letter to the Human Resources Office, as was requested by Liaison. So I'm a little disappointed that she isn't here, but did everybody get an opportunity to read that? I didn't get any feedback, so I'm going to assume that you're fine with it as written.
I thought it was an excellent letter.
Yeah, that was the one. She did most of that.
Hmm.
So Bill, just to bring you up to speed, Liaison had an experience, I guess, with the town in regard to the employment of an individual with a disability, and she's asking that we write a letter to the HR director,
Sure.
To just bring it to their attention and advise them to be aware of, of the requirement to hiring individuals who are with disabilities. So would you like to see that before we send it?
That'd be good. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Typically, if you want to just CC me on the distribution list for the commission meetings, that's fine. But typically, anything we're talking about like this would be public record, so we'd want to at least have that as like a packet, just like when we send in our agendas. We keep that information out there so folks can see what we're talking about. Because if I'm here coming in, as I am, I have no idea what's going on. So you guys all know, I have no idea. So. Just for transparency purposes, typically any backup information that's being discussed would be put as additional information, for the public to review too.
Okay. So would we include that when you say part of the packet?
Yep.
We wouldn't send that with the agenda, or how do we distribute that?
Yeah, so typically what I do, if I'm presenting to the council, as a good example, I'll send up a PowerPoint to Sherry by the Thursday before the meeting, and that will be put into the packet that she puts up to the website. So she'll just add all of that. Typically, if you're talking about emails that you received or any of those things, you can throw all those into the packet and just throw it all up. And so it just basically all the additional information that the board's getting. Everybody would be able to see that.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you need any help on that, don't hesitate. Hit me up.
All right. So should I do that in retrospect for her to put up with when we send her these? Well, Janice may send the meeting minutes, but I suppose we can send all this information to her under separate cover to include.
Yeah.
With the meeting minutes and the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how we would want to do it. Yep.
Okay,
So it's basically like the supporting information for the agenda, if you want to look at it that way.
okay. All right.
Bill, while we have 1 second, is your title ADA coordinator? As far-
Town engineer / ADA coordinator, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is, we talked a little bit about brainstorming how to replenish or add to the funds that we currently have. So I'm just, I'm gonna leave that. Bill may have some input. I mean, obviously, there may be some grants that we can write for.
Mhm.
Currently, we know that we have some funds that have been received based on handicap parking violations. But
Sure.
those that we have been built up over the course of 30 years.
Yeah.
So we don't, there's nothing, I don't know that there's any money that's been added since I've been on this commission, which is like 3 or 4 years. So
Yeah, I
depending
think-
on what we decide to do, as we spend that down, how do we replenish them?
Sure. So I think if the board was coming up with, or the commission was coming up with ideas on what they wanted to spend things on, that would be something we could roll into the capital budget process next year. Anything that's over $10,000 typically would be a capital item, and that could easily be added as a line item that just sits in our capital budget going forward. That's when I worked for the town of Concord, they would typically run with about a $25,000 budget for certain things, and if something came up that they had targeted, they would up that number at different times. So it would jump to 50 at different times, and at times I would pull out of it for certain improvements around around the town. So that might be a good way to do it here to start with. But we'd have to kind of figure out what we want to target it for, because there is a presentation that has to be made to the capital planning committee on what all that would be and what we'd be using it for. But I think that would be a good way to get some budget for the commission to do some of these items that you folks want to do.
Okay, and that leads us to the to the next line item, which was talking about things, an upcoming things that we want to do for the upcoming year.
Sure.
Paula, are you prepared to do anything in regard to the trajectory regarding charting a life? Or do you want to just wait and do that in September?
We could do that now, or we could do that. I don't have like a form to pull up. I could probably have one in like 5 minutes, but we could talk about charting the life if that is helpful.
Okay, so yeah, I had again sent out, in the past, we've talked about different items. Just different items have come up in our discussions, and I just kind of kept a record of them. And I had kind of sent that out to the group. So one of the things that this is something that Lois has been advocating for, Bill, are the T-coils for hearing aids, particularly at the Galvin, for town meeting at least.
Okay.
I don't have any idea what the value of that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, if there's a list of things that you folks already have looked through and gone, I mean, if you want to forward it my way, I can start to price some of this stuff out and have it as part of, because I'd like to add a little bit more with, maybe even pulling out like the cart services as a separate item, assuming X amount of meetings per year or something to that effect. So there's a little bit more budget. It doesn't just come out of the town meeting budget per se. So that's typically how we've been funding that service.
Okay.
So that would be a good idea that we could look at that. And they may decide to actually just add it as an operating budget item too and give the commission a budget line item. But, that's all typically in our budget cycle and that starts somewhere in January or so typically. So we have some time to discuss that. If we had a specific capital request or a larger project idea that we wanted to move forward with, we could do that for fall time meeting. But that would need to be something that's, fairly substantial.
Right.
Bill, is there a budget now anywhere for ASL or cart services for meeting accommodations of any kind?
There's not, no.
There is
Nope.
not a budget. Well, I think that's a great
No.
idea to have a budget for that because.
Yeah, me too. So typically what we do for town meeting has its own town meeting budget. I'm able to pull out of that. I do have an ADA budget that I did as a capital item a few years ago for our curb ramp assessment and study. And we did all of our sidewalks too for pedestrian access and all of that stuff. So that'll be used to advance our transition plan, which I brought to the commission probably a year and a half ago or so. So that's ongoing right now, and I'm expecting a deliverable in June. And then I also was planning to do a building assessment as well. So I think I have somewhere in the range of 70 or 75,000 for that effort. So my goal was to sign a contract for that work before the end of the fiscal year.
Where buildings are being assessed?
All the town buildings. Anything the town maintains.
I think it might behoove us to have someone from the CAT department at the commission to come out and make suggestions of what we could do with the Galvin auditorium so that most meetings that needed to have some kind of assistance for hearing aids could be built in. And they could probably also give you as an estimate of what that cost would be, but they'd probably also provide a couple of options.
Yeah.
I know that when the Galvin was being made, I had suggested, and I can't remember who I suggested it to at that time, that while it was being made, that they could have these places already in place.
Yep, sure, makes sense.
I don't think that ever happened. And I don't know what is the high school, the new high school that's being looked at? Are they going to be, is there going to be no auditorium there? Is that the plan? Or, I mean.
Oh, there is an auditorium planned, I believe. I mean, that's still in preliminary phases. That's a ways away on that type of detail. But obviously it's something I'm thinking about. So, I don't know if you made it to the last town meeting where we did more of because it was a much smaller one, but so we had the CAT services again there. And, what they ended up doing was essentially having a streaming, we did it just online like we did for the previous town meeting, and then a projector that had one large screen that was next to the moderator on the side of the stage, so folks could use that if they needed to. So I didn't hear any feedback on the positive or the negative, but that seemed to work pretty well from where I was sitting. So I think we have I hate to say workarounds, but we have stuff that's there. There could end up being a permanent, large monitor or something that we purchase to have ready to go that can easily be plugged into a computer to accommodate it, or a set computer that's there to do that service. So, but those aren't big dollars in my mind. Those are all probably in the $3,000, $5,000 range, I think, at the top end. And I think we could probably even do something for cheaper than that. So.
And Lorna, what was the agency that you are recommending we bring out?
The Mass Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing has a technology department within their commission that goes around and can assess what the needs are and can make recommendations of what's going to be the best implementation
Sure.
For that area.
Yeah, if you want to tag me in to do that, I'm happy to do it. So I don't think that's, that makes sense. I think we've had a good system so far, but I'm happy to get more feedback from them. I mean, they're the experts on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think too, technology is always changing. So I think that would be really, helpful too, because I'd hate to spend even $3,000 or $5,000 if, I know some people who use hearing aids and can, adjust things pretty easily within their own apps. I know, not all hearing aids operate the same way, but
Sure. Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. So yeah, that's a good suggestion, Lorna. I'm happy to
I
take that.
think Jonathan Odell
Yeah,
might still be working there.
He is.
And he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I emailed him a couple of weeks ago about work stuff. So yes, he's still
Okay,
there.
cool.
He's really, really good.
If you have his contact, feel free to just throw it my way, and I'm happy to reach out to him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's jonathan.odell@mass.gov. I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
Anybody else? This is a good discussion. Does anybody else have any thoughts on big dollar items? We've talked in the past about the park, and Bill, I think you've been working on the swing thing.
Yep, I can give you an update on that. So that was,
Sure.
Judy had asked me last time, so I took a site visit to both with the Public Works Director. And so we're planning to actually do the paved path at both locations that was requested. So that's gonna go. I also have another one, I think I sent you, Marie, by the post office, a request to remove, there's a couple of curbs for the driveway that goes down. I had that as a request too, so that's being done. So, I mean, I can definitely make the case to explain why we're spending the money in different places. And as long as we have similar projects that keep going in that direction, I can use this as essentially a cost money for some mobility stuff. But as we have other needs too, we'll talk to the technology folks, and maybe we can roll this into one package to bring to town meeting. I'd prefer it not to be a one-shot situation. So I like the idea more of like a continuing budget, whether it's operational or even a rolling capital item that we can then kind of divvy up on how to spend it each year.
Okay, and the parks were the park at the head of the lake, and what was the other one?
Oh no, it was the two requests were for JJ Round and for Maple Way.
Okay.
Yep. So we'd be paving the Maple Way up essentially to there's a set of picnic tables and things that are there. I'm assuming, Judy, that's what you were talking about, right? I wouldn't necessarily go in. Are you okay with the chips that are there and all of that? Or maybe get to one table that is then retrofitted to have the roll up seat? I'm assuming that's what you would prefer, right?
That's what that sounds fabulous.
Sure. Okay. So that would be done there. And then for the other section, we just basically bring it in, widen it out where the water fountain was, and then basically run it right along the edge of the play footprint, I guess.
That's perfect. Thank you
Okay.
so much. That
No,
will be
sure.
very helpful to a lot of people.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. I'm trying to roll all of that as one package to give to our contractor as a change order to get that done. I am getting a little bit of feedback from the resident that requested the post office work to be done. That came to me late fall, so we were able to get survey in just before. We're in the process of designing all that stuff up right now. So, I told them that it would be done in the spring. Looks like it's probably going to be closer to summer, so I'm getting a little bit of feedback on not hitting that deadline, but it is in the queue. So.
Okay, does anybody else have any other?
I just wanted some clarity on the post office thing. This doesn't have to do with the door that we've.
No.
So if you can even see it on Google Earth if you go there, Google Maps. It's so if you're on Yale Street coming, so where the main post office driveway is that goes out on the Yale, they did a curb return. So you have a step down and a step up. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can't actually go down that street. So that was requested to be modified. So we surveyed that up, but it's a little bit more complicated than just ripping out some curbs. So obviously I got to get the grades to work as I blend back. And then it's a very steep driveway that goes back. So trying to make that compliant across the threshold of the driveway is difficult. So it's been a little bit more complicated than what I thought it was going to be, but we're grading it all out and working on it. So.
Great,
Lois,
thank you.
sorry, Lorna, I haven't heard any feedback on the post office door. I'm gonna go back into our notes to try to find the website where I went to make the request to see if there's any way to follow up. I don't know if there is or if it went into a black hole, but
You did hear back though from the postmaster, right? I believe, didn't he?
they were very amenable to doing it at the Wakefield location. It's when they raised it up their chain, it came back and said to them, sorry, we don't have the money to do that right now. But then you had sent me a website from some literature that you received, and those updates are being made. I mean, they are being made. I don't know, it goes to some committee and they assess it and make a determination. And
Right.
that's it. I don't know where, if anybody's even looked at our request yet, and I don't know if there's a way to find that out.
Okay. Yeah, we could maybe tag team that if you'd like to. Maybe get on a call this week or next week
All
to
right.
chat about that and get that moving.
Marie, I had the first item from Paula. Is it called Charting the Life? Are we going to talk about that as well? Or are we not talking about
So
that?
what Paula was going to use a trajectory method from a course called Charting the Life it's used typically when you're preparing for the future of your loved one with a disability. So I don't know, Paula, are you prepared to do that?
Yeah, yep, I can, as long as I have permission to share screen,
Sure.
I can do that. And if you're on other boards that have used this, it is something that Massachusetts is a community of practice for. DPH is using it, I know, DVS is using it, DMH, the school system. I think the hope is that everybody will start to use similar language so that when you're trying to request disability services, you don't need a translator or a dictionary to ask for different services, but that everybody's asking for the same kind of person-centered services. So, so there's a bunch of different tools. This is all through the University of Missouri. And one of them, like Marie mentioned, is a trajectory. And it's just kind of talking about like things that you do want and things that you don't want. And I thought it might be helpful for the commission in terms of, looking at Marie's list of kind of the things that we've come up with that we'd like to work on, kind of getting everybody's kind of on the commission's priorities, and kind of where do we want to kind of go from here. I think sometimes what don't you want can be, as informative as what people do want. So I can share that now, I think.
I think I'm a little bit confused. Are you saying that we want to have an educational program about charting the life, or are we just saying that we want to look at it that way for this group as we make decisions for the future?
Saying that we'll look at it from that framework with this group moving forward. I don't think it's not necessarily that all the materials and everything are available free online. There's tons and tons of different videos and things like that. So I don't think that it's something that we would necessarily need to sponsor, because Massachusetts is already a community of practice and has already adopted the frameworks. It's just kind of, I think, being a community of practice and integrating it into all aspects of the disability world. And so this just being one of many aspects of the disability world, just maybe as a kind of a planning tool. And this is just one of many, many tools.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah,
So are you able to share? I think
so.
I checked off the right box here.
There we go.
There we go.
Can everybody see it? And so this is just, again, like Marie said, it's, often used for different stages of somebody's life. And it could be for anybody's life. But, for our purposes, it would be more of like, what's our vision for the next year of the commission, the next 5 years of the commission, or, what would we like to, prioritize, I guess, some of the things like the parking issues we discussed tonight, those just come up. But like the Intelligent Lives thing was something that we decided that we wanted to do and then work together to make that happen.
So one item that we've talked about that sort of came out of Intelligent Lives was to continue the discussion regarding the employment of individuals with disabilities in town. And I know that one of the items, one of the next steps we talked about was Lavon has connected with her dad, who is it the Lions Club?
Rotary.
Rotary, okay. And has asked if we would be willing to go there and make a little presentation to them so that they could maybe provide us some support with opening some doors.
Great.
That was employment. And specifically, we did talk on our last meeting when we talked about employment was within the town, within town hall. Now, maybe that, we'll talk with Bill. This email may, help to spark some discussion there.
Yeah, I think that is something that we typically do. We have a couple of individuals now that work with us. So I'm not sure what the issue was specifically with whatever happened here, but yeah, I know that's something that we definitely look at, and we, obviously don't discriminate. That's something we can't do. So
Right.
I'm sure there's a situation or a reason behind whatever happened. It could be related to the specific job or something. That would be my guess. That it was related specifically to the duties of it. Some positions just can't be supported depending on what they are. Some can, right? So.
All right, well, you can give us feedback on that.
Okay.
Another item we talked about was housing. We wanted, particularly when we're talking about the development of 200 Quannapowa Parkway. Bill, can you just describe a little bit, at least what some of those units are going to be, what's the correct term that they use? For individuals with limited means, they refer to them as some.
I'm drawing a blank on that.
Okay.
There are some units that are going to be conversion ready.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
So that they will have the walls will be built so that, for example, you could put grab bars in the walls versus, like I do, you just like stick a nail in and then it falls out. It's I'm not supposed to be putting it up here. So
all those too, unfortunately.
Yeah. So there are a very definite number of units that are accessible and that are being made that way. And we can ask the attorney and the developer folks to come to our meeting and tell us exactly what is planned for that group. I have made a preliminary request to Board of Appeals person to say, you know, we really want to do this. So do we want to move forward on that and see in September if we can get somebody to meet? Or Bill, do you think that how far
be-
along do you think they'll be by
I
then?
think they'll be approved by then, to be honest with you. I think
At
they'll be
least-
through the Board of Appeals process. Right now, I think the big issue is related more to conservation items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we could at least get a presentation about what is
Being
planned.
Yep.
We can learn how many, you know, how they planned it, what the units are, make sure that, I'm sure that it does meet code, because that would be,
Yeah, that has to happen.
yeah, that's, but we can find out, because it's, what did it go from something like 380 units down to 260 units or whatever? And there's going to be other things that are incorporated into this area. Are they ending up with a restaurant or ending up with a cafe? It's so there are going to be some public use places, pieces of this development that are not just for the residents who are there. So,
Yep, that's definitely built in, and they have public parking areas and ways to use the certain amenities and things that are there.
oh, and public bathrooms are going to be
Public
there.
bathrooms, that's a part of it. Yep, that'll be open at certain times, and they also have a couple of new public walkways that'll be done in front of the building towards the lake that'll be available. One's more of like a boardwalk, but it's being designed for accessibility as well. So there's a bunch of things that they've looked at for this.
I think too, going forward, and I guess this is more of like a long term, and I don't know if, anybody else shares this kind of interest, thinking about when buildings are constructed, not just for thinking about accessibility for people who are affected by their disability with a physical disability, but other folks who are covered under ADA, just in thinking about how kind of things are constructed, are they constructed kind of like the Lincoln School, where there's more kind of like, a shared space. And so I think just thinking about like creative options that other communities may be developing. Again, not something that's going to happen tomorrow, not that something that's going to happen with this particular project, but just a thought. And I apologize. I thought I had the version I could write on here, but I don't. So I will send that to you all after. I'm just taking notes, and I'll type it in after and send it to you.
Okay, sounds good. Does anybody else have thoughts of areas that that you would like for us to focus on? No, it sounds like we have. I think those that we've mentioned already are, will keep us busy between the housing and the employment, and just things that will come up that we don't even know about at this point. All right, Paula, thank you. And that would be great if you could, just based on our discussion today, kind of fill some of that in.
Will do. And is there anything that people don't want to spend time on, or just feel like, I know it's a public board and it's a volunteer board, but anything that people kind of don't see as a priority? Okay, that's helpful. Thank
I
you.
think we're at the mercy of the public in some regard as to what we
Absolutely.
do focus on, depends on what's brought forward to us.
Yep.
So are we also listing what objectives have to be met in order for the goal to be actually, to get to the goal? And if the goal is to, the housing, let's say that, are we writing the objectives, the steps on how to get to that goal, or are we
Sound
just
like you've written a
focusing
few
on the goal?
IEPs, Lorna, there. You mean milestones?
too many.
Individual
Many.
milestones that we need to meet to get to the
Yeah.
goals? That,
Yeah.
you know what, once we've looked at some of these overall, overarching goals, yeah, I think maybe that's something for our September meeting, is to really, when you say housing, that's pretty general. When you say employment, that's pretty general. So then I think we need to break it down further, and what exactly is it, that we want to do? Have one additional business in town, add an employee with a disability, and, what are the steps that we would have to go through to get that to happen? And obviously, one of the steps would be to meet with the Rotary, to communicate our thoughts to them and see what they can do to help us. But yeah, let's definitely.
And there are other multi-unit developments that are on,
Coming up,
at least
right.
one that I know that's on the table, the one that's down, what is it, 1 North Ave, Bill?
Which one's that?
Very,
No.
very low number on North Ave that's down.
Oh, yeah, that's,
next to
well,
the-
that's, you say next to the,
Next to the
the
Elks. What
next-
no, what is it? Not the
Elks,
Elks.
right.
up of the Alps,
Knights
that's
of
not-
Columbus. The
Whatever
Knights of
is on
Columbus.
North Ave. I don't know.
Well, yeah, those are in the 500s though. That up that. Are you thinking of like 10 Broadway, like where the old gym used to be?
No, I'm thinking about the one that's gonna go where the woods are, that they've got to do
Oh.
the conservation.
Yeah, so it's a 40B request. Yeah, so that's a little different too. So that's going to be in as affordable housing, because we're not at our number at this point. So that's
Right.
what's being applied for there. Yeah.
Yeah, so if
Okay,
we could
so-
have, that might be the kind of thing that we potentially for the future ask that
Mhm.
if anybody's building something over X number of units, and we would have to come up with what that is, 4 units, 8 units, whatever, that we would like a brief presentation to the Commission on Disabilities where they talk about how many accessible units or what is the level of accessibility that they are building into it. We know they have to be ADA compliant, but let's, and
Mhm.
Massachusetts Architectural Board compliant, but find out, so what does that tell us, what that means, how many units, and what are those units? Are they going to be accessible ready, or are you going to build something that's a wheelchair accessible unit within, as you're building the apartments or whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
planning?
Yeah, and so they're also looking at revisions to the zoning bylaw, and they have a committee, I believe, that's looking at that stuff now. So overall, that would be an opportunity to plug in there. Master plan committee too, that talks about housing. That would be a great place to plug in. There's a meeting towards the end of the month this month. That would be a great place for the commission to plug in to say, try to add these types of housing units into our, into our community.
Right, because some of the things we've talked about, that some of these units that we've seen, they have particular stoves that shut themselves off when you walk away from them. Now, that would be something great for, for an individual with a developmental disability, but would also be something great for, somebody who is elderly that maybe, has got the start of a dementia. And you're trying to keep them in their home, and that's a worry, right? The whole stove thing. Like Paula mentioned, a community space or units that were more like a dorm room, 4 bedrooms, but then had a living, central living room, kitchen area.
Right. I think maybe if we're looking at the creation of those type of units and those type of residential, that type of residential construction, the goal would be to try to get that into these types of plans to talk about what really is needed, what density would be needed, that type of thing. And what other communities are doing, obviously.
And
So we
who
can
would
wait.
be able to advise us, Bill? I mean, we know that there's a woman, her name is Kathy Boyle. She has a website. She's very focused on individuals with autism.
Mhm.
And I mean, she's just been a strong advocate, and that would be somebody that I would recommend that come and speak with us. But who
Yep.
else would you recommend that would have knowledge about?
Other commissions. So I would look into other communities that have a more robust ADA department. So, like a Wellesley or someone into that a fairly affluent community that's done this already and that's ahead of the curve on it. I think that's what
Cambridge.
we're looking at. Cambridge would be a great example.
Yeah, I know that, Rachel
Yeah, so-
Tannenhouse is the director. We could get her to come.
What's
Yep,
her
it
name?
could work.
Janice, Rachel?
Rachel Tannenhouse is the Commission on Disabilities in the city of Cambridge now, and she was the Director of Disabilities at Department of Public Health for many years.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
we could get, she would, I'm pretty sure. It's just so much, it's so much of a bigger, I mean, it's a, as it is in some cities and towns, it's a job.
Yeah.
So it's not a volunteer position. There are several people that work in the department.
Yeah, a lot of communities have a dedicated position to this. While I'm supporting the board and doing this, most communities have a dedicated position for this at our size.
Yeah, and that would be, someone like her would be, we don't know what we don't know, right? And it would be great to just to brainstorm with another community, what they're doing. And we could pick bits and pieces of things that make sense for the different developments that are happening here.
Exactly. But a lot of it is, though, it's about the, how the zoning code is structured and how these things fit into the community. And that's where you need to have that built in so that as the developments come in, they're required to do these. As opposed to always asking, they have to come here or they have to do things. And that's what we're not doing. But again, these are the opportunities between the master plan and the zoning revisions. Those are when you would try to tag those in and plug them into our code so that they're there and they're required to be done. So
Great idea.
Opportunity from and if you have the contact, I mean, it would make sense, even if it's a representative or two from the commission. I'd be happy to sit in too on how they've strategized certain things, and we can glean hopefully a few nuggets that we think make sense, and then
Right.
see how to bridge that gap and implement. So.
Yeah, we need to educate ourselves. We need to know what the options are that are even out there before we can even make the recommendations. And just, from the little I've heard, people are just getting really creative. We're obviously restricted just because we don't have the land that, the folks out in Western Mass have to be able to do some of these things, but
Sure.
To the extent that we can do a little here and a little there, that's something.
Yeah, but then there's also development and land that the town owns or may end up owning at different times for,
Right.
Through tax title or whatever it may be, and that could be deployed for those types of properties, or at least requested through whatever process the town will use to figure out how they want to dispose of property or change the use of it in the future. So there's opportunities. It's just a matter of, I think, having an idea of what needs to happen, at least what the framework of it is and how other communities have done it, and then just be prepared, so that it's more of an advanced, thought process. So it has to be set and ready to go prior to, the development coming in. It's something that's already written in, and they have to accommodate what we're asking for here. That's the way to do it. So. And again, like anything else, there's competing interests. So, your voice will be one of a few, and, I'll hopefully help advocate and keep things moving too. But
Thank you. We certainly, we appreciate you, Bill. You've just given us a lot of good guidance.
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that? We'll certainly talk more in the fall. All right, Lorna, I'm going to just switch up. You had youth council liaison on here.
Right. Bella is coming off of the youth council, so we need to apply to have another student from the youth council be a liaison. And I didn't know if anybody wanted to take that responsibility of contacting Catherine Dinga, who is kind of like the, I don't know if the mentor of that group or, but to put a request in for another liaison, another youth liaison next year for the 22-23 calendar year.
Was it Levon that got us that contact?
Yeah, it was Levon that actually had me contact I think that was the principal at the high school, but I
Right.
can't remember the person's name, the principal's name up there. Because I wasn't having much luck just sending out my emails to Catherine, who appears to be kind of spread kind of thin in the town as far as a lot of her responsibilities. So
Yeah, we share her with Melrose as well.
yeah,
Well, that would explain it. All right, well, let's maybe put a question mark down next to Levon's name to see if she could do that. Probably won't happen till September now anyway, so. And Lorna and Bill had connected. Lorna was inquiring about the ramps for the outdoor dining.
they seem to be in place.
They seem they're in place, so. there you
So at
go.
least I
Thank
saw
you,
one of
Bill.
them at on Sunday. I happened to notice that the one at Sabatino's was in, so I'm assuming that the rest of them were in because Bill was like right on the money, like contacting who needs to be have them down there. 'Cause they
I'd
weren't
like to say
there.
I'd like to say it was me, but the staff is tremendous. So that's all Public Works folks making that happen. So
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Right.
I just, as I said, I just didn't know when I noticed that there wasn't one down. I just didn't know whether even when those outdoor seatings have been put up
Mhm.
and you know, whether the restaurants own the ramps or whether the town owned the ramps. And
no,
I appreciate your help in getting that going.
Yeah, we purchased them so that even if we're not doing the corrals, we can use them for construction if we need to block off a sidewalk. So it makes sense for us to own them.
So these are new corrals.
Mhm.
Why didn't they go with the barriers that they had? I kind of liked the kids' drawings, artwork on them. This doesn't seem to be quite as sturdy as the Jersey barrier being there.
Some of them have Jersey barriers behind them still, though. I think that there was some discussion at the council level, I believe, or somewhere else that somebody wanted to change it. So I wasn't really involved with any of that, so I can't really speak to it.
Is there not going to be one down in front of Harrington's? I don't think I noticed one there.
Well, there's a request process that goes to the town council to approve them. So they may or may not want them. I don't know if they were planning to put it back, is what I heard. So, you know, that's the best I heard, because the what's the name of the Italian place? It's slipping my mind.
Cafe Italia.
Cafe Italia, you would think I'd be able to remember that. But yeah, they I guess they weren't interested. I think they were probably part of the drivers on doing that before. So
Well, thank you very much.
anytime.
Okay, so the last item I just wanted to mention is when we return in September, one of the agenda items will be to vote in new officers. So I guess that I don't know how it's handled on other boards, but what we've been doing is for people who are interested in holding an office, that would be chair, co-chair, secretary, or treasurer. If you would please send an email to me, either nominating somebody or if, you know, nominating yourself if you have an interest. All those positions are open for grabs. And when we return, I don't know, Bill, how does that work on other chairs? I don't see people actually voting in their meeting. Do they vote behind the scenes? How are those individuals actually elected?
Yeah, usually it's done in the meeting. It should be. It's typically a
It's done
public
in the
meeting.
minute.
Yeah, at least the boards I'm on, I mean, that's how it's been done.
Okay.
And, you know, some of them, the chairs stay on for the most part. That's happened a lot too. But that is obviously a big, it's a big ask. So I know I'm a chair on a board up here in Middleton, so I know the drill. But there's yeah, typically there's a nomination that happens, someone seconds it, and then there's votes that are taken. That's how it's done.
Okay, so that we will, based on the response I get for people, we'll put that on, we'll put a ballot together or whatever, put something on the agenda for September so that we can vote in officers for the next year. I know it's typically done after town meeting, but just because of the way we all came together initially and this got started, we didn't do it till September, and we've just kept that date. So does anybody have anything else that they want to just? Okay, well, I want to, this is our last meeting until September, so I just want to wish everybody happy and safe summer. Let's keep our fingers crossed for great weather so we can enjoy every day. It's so short.
I know. And remember that the meeting in September is the 12th, which will be the second Monday.
That's what I was just going to ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
we'll
all for your work. Marie, thank you for corralling us every month.
No,
And
this is a great board. I'm just so, you all bring something to the table, and it's just awesome. I just feel like, of course, the past couple of years we were just stymied because of COVID and we weren't able to do much. But I think, this year was great with Intelligent Lives, and I think we have a lot of good ideas moving forward, and hopefully we'll really be able to hit the ground running and get some of this stuff implemented. And, I don't think that many people even know we exist. So that's a big part of this too, right? And Jen McDonald, we need to give her a big thank you with our Facebook page, with posting stuff on the town website for us. I mean, she's been just great doing all of that. So yeah, it's been great. I'm looking forward to another year.
And
So
she's been so quick because we put the ride information up. It was up, I think, the very next day.
She's great. And if you have things that you want her to put up that you think are pertinent, just send them to her. I don't think we need to vote on things like that. It's just going on Facebook and on our webpage. So if you come across in your travels pieces of information that you think would be useful to others, just shoot her an email to please post it. And she's been great about doing that.
Marie, do you want us to CC you and Lorna on the message?
Yeah, that would be great, just so that we kind of know. But yeah, that would be great. That saves a step, because me, I'm not always great about reading after I've worked all day on my laptop. Sometimes the last thing I want to do is open my work computer. It's just, I sit there saying I should be looking at my emails, but I just do not want to do that. But I will continue to check the, our town email address throughout the summer. Bill, I guess we really can't do much for any requests. I'll forward what I can to you in the event that, there might be things that you can work on. But other than that, people are gonna just have to kind of wait.
Yeah, if they're easy requests, we'll definitely be able to mobilize and do what we can. So.
All right, but I'll just send them to everybody just so that and we'll just have to keep a running list and be prepared in September.
Marie, could you give me Jen's email address again?
Sure, hold on just a minute. Of course, I was efficient today and I filed it, so. Okay, here she is. It's JMCDONALD, so J McDonald
Mhm.
Hey, Smegs.
at wakefield.ma.us.
Mhm.
And I want to just throw something out as a possible for you to think about, Maria, over the summer. If that specific task of yours to open up the box and look at the emails, could we establish that as the job of somebody else? So that someone else is actually taking care of the postings and whatever, maybe a liaison, a website liaison or something, because that would free up that specific task. It doesn't even have to be an officer. It can just be a person on the
Anybody,
committee.
yeah.
So just think about that over the summer.
Yeah, okay, that if somebody is interested in doing that, just send me an email. I mean, we don't get a lot of emails, but I just feel bad, you know, when someone has sent something and it's been some period of time, and especially if they're irate about something and we haven't at least said, you know, we're in receipt of your email, we'll get back to you. So,
I mean, you can always have that forwarded to me in the summer and I can address them as they come in. I mean, I'm checking my email all day long, so it's part of my gig anyway. So if that makes it a little easier for you folks, you
all
can take
right,
the
well,
summer off, you know, it's okay. So, no, I'll still be there, so.
I know, you have to work, you have to do
Well,
your
this
real
is-
job.
You're all volunteers. I get it. So it's a big difference. It's part of my gig. So, you know.
All right,
You know,
anything else?
Well, just something that we might want to think of as we go forward. I didn't think of this until actually last night. The Festival by the Lake is happening this weekend, and perhaps we could have had a table there with some, you know, it's like our bookmarkers and any other, maybe we should think of more literature or something to put out on a table.
And that's, I mean, there's the market down
Farmers
there,
market.
right? Farmers market. We've thrown that out before and we've just never mobilized to do it. So
Right.
maybe that's something that we have on our agenda for our first meeting too, to, you know, come up with a list of all these events, and then, you know, we can't go to all of them. So we just have to pick and choose what makes sense. And if we can appear at a couple of them, then, you know, that's more than what we've been doing.
Right.
Yeah, good one. Have you been to the Wakefield 411 night? Have you done that?
No, obviously,
be a
because we're
great-
not, most of us aren't new residents, but good point.
Yeah, that's a great one typically. So there's usually plenty of space there. I mean, because we have Public Works typically goes to a handful, if not more than that. So we typically have a table there and with our little goodies that we hand out and information packets and all that stuff. So
And
I mean, I can
how
sit through it.
often do they do that? Do you know, during the course of the year?
Handful of times, I'd say, somewhere around there.
What was that for?
Handful,
Handful,
somewhere around,
okay.
yeah, 5, 6, somewhere in that range. We're not at every single one, depending on what it is, but if it's something that we can have a table at, we typically will.
Okay,
Who runs that, Bill? Who's the link to finding out about those?
Wait, I can get you a copy of it. But yeah, I mean, it's part of the town calendar, but I mean, ultimately, the Public Works Director is involved in all of them because we have staff that's supporting it, right? So we have a pretty good handle on all of those.
It's gone.
Yep.
Blink out.
I sure found out.
okay,
All right.
good discussion. Anything else? All right, well, then, would somebody please make a motion? It's to adjourn. It's 8:39.
Motion to adjourn.
And to second it. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, well, have a great summer. I'm sure we'll communicate by email. But hopefully we see one another out at dining at one of our restaurants.
There you go.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Enjoy your
Bill. We
summer.
appreciate you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.